Hello, I am Peter Okwoche. Welcome to Focus on Africa, our top stories. An emergency budget for emergency times. South Africa's economy projected to shrink to a 90-year low as a result of the coronavirus pandemic. In northern Nigeria, hundreds of workers held against their will in a rice factory have been freed. The waiting game begins as counting continues in Malawi's election rerun. Also on the program, Gabon is set to become one of the few sub-Saharan African nations to decriminalize homosexuality. But if the ban is to be lifted, it needs the approval from Parliament's upper house and the President. We'll be looking at why the move now. And the debate here in the UK about whether the term BAME, which stands for Black, Asian and Minority Ethnic Backgrounds, should be scrapped. Thanks for joining us here on Focus on Africa from BBC World News. The International Monetary Fund has further downgraded its global economic forecasts for this year and next because of the coronavirus pandemic. Its latest report says the world economy will contract by nearly 5% this year. That's nearly 2% worse than it expected in April. For South Africa, the drop is expected to be 7.2%. The news comes as the government presented an emergency budget, the first such move since the end of apartheid. I'm now joined from Johannesburg by the BBC's Vumani Mkhize. Vumani, what has Finance Minister Tito Mboweni been presenting to the nation?
So, good evening, Peter. So, Tito Mboweni,
We seem to be having a problem with Vumani's line there. We'll try and get him back here on Focus in Africa. But let's take a quick look at other stories making the headlines across Africa and the rest of the world. Zimbabwe is facing a huge increase in price of fuel. Both petrol and diesel have gone up by 150% overnight. It comes a day after the central bank removed a fixed currency exchange rate. The value of the Zimbabwe dollar fell by more than 50% after the move. The country has been plagued by fuel shortages for years. Last year, another drastic hike in prices resulted in violent protests. The authorities in Zambia say the country's health minister has been arrested and charged with using stolen money to buy property. The Anti-Corruption Commission said it noticed last month that Chitalu Chilufya had suddenly amassed a fortune. He was promptly released on bail and is said to be already back in Parliament. And organizers of both the Berlin and New York marathons say they won't take place this year because of the pandemic. The race in Berlin has been scheduled for late September, while the New York event was slated for November 1st. There's no word yet on the London Marathon, which is still scheduled for October 4th, having been pushed back from April 26th. Let's go back to South Africa now, where the Finance Minister, Tito Mboweni, has been presenting an emergency budget to the country. And Vumani Mkhize joins me now on the line from Johannesburg. What has he been presenting to the nation?
Sure. So, Tito Mboweni presented an emergency budget, which is the second budget of the year, following his first one in February. But as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, it essentially rendered that budget null and void because of the new economic reality that South Africa currently finds itself in as a result of that pandemic. So the country went into a hard lockdown on the 26th of March. And as a result, many businesses and much of South Africa's economic activity came to a halt. And that has resulted in the perilous economic situation that the country faces right now. So in terms of the main takeaways that Mboweni mentioned budget, I think there will be a $7 billion worth of money that's going to be borrowed from international multilateral lenders. And also the budget deficit is increasing to around 15%. Now, South Africa is not the in the world that facing these massive budget deficits. As you've mentioned at the top of the story, that the IMF has mentioned that the entire world economy is going to be contracting by nearly 5%, Peter. So South Africa's economic situation is not really unique in terms of the rest of the world.
Okay, Vumani Mkhize, we'll have to leave it there. We do apologize for the quality of that line, but thank you very much. Now, police in Nigeria have rescued 300 people they say were locked in a rice processing factory and forced to work throughout a coronavirus lockdown. From the end of March, the men were allegedly not allowed to leave the mill in the northern city of Kano. The BBC's Chris Ewoko has more.
They were not allowed to leave the factory on fears that they could contract the virus and infect their colleagues. To encourage them, the company promised them bonuses in addition to their salaries. But those who refused were reportedly threatened, harassed, said that they would lose their jobs if they went home to meet their families. Some of the men said they were forced to work hours, sometimes with little food.
I'm one of the workers locked up in the company because of our work. Where we sleep is not good. There is no concern about our health. And we're not allowed to visit our families or relatives. They don't give us food or money to buy food. They don't pay us at the right time.
The police were tipped off when one of the workers alerted a human rights organization detailing the dehumanizing conditions they have been working in. The police in Kano say they have sealed off the facility and arrested 4 of the managers. Investigations are still ongoing as to why the workers were kept against their will. Chris Ewoko, BBC News, Abuja.
Now, it's 3 years since the scandal in South Africa involving PR firm Bell Pottinger, the Gupta brothers and former President Jacob Zuma. Now, a new documentary, Influence, is investigating how the company played a role in democracies around the world. The film is premiering online in the UK, and Rodri Davis spoke to its directors.
British public relations company Bell Pottinger stands accused of fomenting racial tensions in post-apartheid South Africa.
The documentary Influence delves into disgraced and now dissolved British PR firm Bell Pottinger. It looks closely at the company's work for the 3 Gupta businessman brothers in former President Jacob Zuma's South Africa.
The Guptas have been accused of benefiting financially from close links to South Africa's President Zuma and hired Bell Pottinger to change that image.
Its spin campaign was viewed as exploiting the fault lines of race and economic inequality. The documentary is a cautionary tale of the drivers of money and power, corrosively intertwined.
It was just so completely disgusting. I mean, what they were doing was coming into a country that is renowned for its racial discourse. There's no question that we are economically unequal. There's no question that so much wealth is still held within the white community. But the fact is they were playing that effectively for cash.
A greed that the 2 South African directors say consumed the company.
The South Africa issue was top of mind because it was essentially the downfall of the company, but also I think an indication of how a country can actually take on forces like Bell Pottinger and win.
The UK public relations trade body expelled the company in 2017, leading to its collapse. Lord Bell, the co-founder of the firm, takes the leading role. The filmmakers got interviews over 5 days with him. Lord Bell's more than 4 decades-long career spanned many continents, companies and celebrities. He made thousands of, at times, hugely successful campaigns.
Go anywhere, do anything was very much the bumper sticker.
And any more spin in the interviews the directors attempted to navigate through.
I'm not sure if you ever know a guy like that. He has no moral compass. Yes, he loves money, but he doesn't just do it for money. For someone like Lord Bell, money and power are interchangeable commodities. So he loved power. He was drawn to it.
The film draws his work for FW de Klerk's National Party in South Africa's first democratic election in 1994 as advancing Lord Bell's international networks.
The first democratic election in South Africa was so important for Bell and people like him because what you really start to see is the establishment of almost like a business model, an understanding of how to, through the election manipulation space, essentially bring together certain players, do certain deals, and then have the ability to then, come in and whitewash any situations that then happen to make the press that shouldn't.
A model that migrated across African countries.
Because he effectively began his geopolitical spin doctoring career here in South Africa in 1994, he was able to use that as almost rocket fuel to jet out into the rest of the country, into the rest of the continent, at a time when many African countries were bringing a version of democracy online, however liberal or illiberal. So it was a confluence of circumstances, smarts, and the sheer fact that there's just so much work to be done here when it comes to geopolitical spin doctrine.
Rodri Davis, BBC News.
Now, MPs in Gabon's lower house of parliament have voted to decriminalize homosexuality. If the proposal is approved, it could be one of the few countries in sub-Saharan Africa to reverse a law that punishes sexual relations between two people of the same sex. According to rights group Amnesty International, homophobia is on the rise across Africa, and it's still punishable by death in Mauritania, Sudan, northern Nigeria, and southern Somalia. Let's speak to my colleague Megha Mohan now. She's the BBC's gender and identity correspondent. She joins me from Doncaster in northern England. Megha, this came completely out of left field, or so it seems. What exactly is happening?
Well, the whole story about homosexuality and Gabon is, as you said, completely out of left field. In fact, if you look at it historically, it was only in 1960, when Gabon had independence, homosexuality was never illegal. It was, in fact, it was just snuck in last year in 2019, and it went above a lot of people's heads. That law to criminalize homosexuality was only just snuck in last year. So what we saw on yesterday, was that 48 parliamentarians in the lower house have voted to overturn that and make homosexuality, to decriminalize homosexuality again. As you said earlier, it still needs to go through the upper house and it still needs to go through the president. However, I did see a tweet just earlier from the president's wife, if you would like me to read that to you, because I think that it might indicate where the president stands. So I'll translate this from French, where she says, Parliament is restoring a fundamental human right for its citizens, that of loving freely without being condemned. The Republic defends respect for everyone's privacy and remains one and indivisible beyond feelings. Yes to dignity and no to hate. So that's from Sylvia Bongo Ondimba, who is the wife of President Ondimba.
And coming from such high-profile a personality, no doubt, that's very significant, that statement there. But how does this compare to other African countries?
So we have, 54 recognized nations in Africa. However, more than 30, around 33 of them have banned homosexuality. Now, countries like Rwanda and Congo don't have anything in law that ban, same-sex relations, but 33, and this is, if you compare it to the whole of the world, which are, the countries in the world that have banned homosexuality, homosexual relations, that's 74 nations in the whole world, and 33 of those are from Africa. So, and we saw last year in Kenya that the High Court upheld the penal codes to remain for homosexuality between men to be illegal. So are we seeing, is Gabon leading the way? That's not necessarily the kind of the temperature of the whole of the continent right now.
Well, one group certainly leading the way in trying to reverse these laws are young people, and they seem to be doing it online via their digital space and social media.
Exactly, that's an excellent point. So we have these conversations that are always happening, especially in Africa, such a young continent when it comes to connectivity as well. We have these secret sort of second layer conversations happening in countries all over Africa, where particularly apps like Grindr and Scruff are being used for people to hook up, and they're just sort of, they're communicating and they're meeting up using these gay apps. There are other apps as well, like Q-Talk, which is quite popular in Nigeria. As you said, northern Nigeria has banned homosexuality, but Q-Talk is an app that's been set up specifically to counsel gay members of society. So definitely there's a digital undercurrent that's pulling this conversation forward too.
Megha Moher, thank you very much for talking to us here on Focus on Africa. Thank you. This is Focus on Africa from BBC World News with me, Peter Okocha. Still to come on the program, demanding answers for Belly, a UK railway worker who was spat at and later died of coronavirus. I'm Peter Okocha. Welcome back. Counting is well underway following yesterday's historic presidential election rerun in Malawi. Some 6.8 million people were eligible to vote. The leading candidates are President Peter Mutharika and opposition leader Lazarus Chakwera. Now, there are different polls coming out. One puts Mr. Chakwera in the lead. These are very early polls from a district, while the others put the incumbent President Mutharika in the lead. Now, evidence of vote tampering led to judges scrapping the May 2019 victory of Mr. Mutharika. Malawi became just the second African nation to annul a presidential election over irregularities after Kenya in 2017. The country has been bitterly divided in the run-up to Tuesday's rerun. The BBC's Emmanuel Igunza has been following the election and joins me now from Nairobi. So, Emmanuel, those very early results from a district level seem to suggest the incumbent Peter Mutharika is trailing. What do we know about that?
Well, there have been different results that have been coming up from different organizations. We know some independent journalists have been giving tallies from the polling stations, but we also know that some of the state-affiliated bodies have also been giving their own tallies, saying that the president will be coming in for a win. So it's too early to say. And remember, Peter, that we've been here before. In the last elections in May of 2019, we did see this sort of opinion polls and also exit polls saying that the opposition was winning, the president was winning, and then the election went in the favor of Peter Mutharika, and then it was annulled. So it is still very early to say, because even the Electoral Commission, it has called for calm. It has told people that this is going to be a very credible election. People should be calm and wait for the official results from the electoral body. And the reason why it has explained the reason why the results have taken time is because this is a manual system. All the returning officers have to come back to the National Tallying Center in Blantyre City and then present those forms, and then that is when they can actually announce the results. So it is a game of waiting to see just how the results would go, and I think by the tomorrow afternoon, we'll be knowing just how these elections will be going.
Okay, Emmanuel Igunza, they're monitoring those Malawian elections from Nairobi for us. Thank you very much. Now, a railway worker in London who died from COVID-19 after being spat at by a man claiming to have the virus has become one of the faces of the Black Lives Matter movement in the UK. Belly Mujinga, who was of Congolese origin, died in April. Police closed her case, saying there was no evidence the attack caused her death, a decision which left many people still demanding justice. Joyce Etutu from BBC Africa has been speaking to Belly's husband in his first television interview since the protests began.
Je demandais, maintenant je vois que le voix s'améliore. Elle me dit, ah non, chérie, il faut beaucoup prier. Elle a parlé avec l'enfant. Elle va parler, c'est tout. Et c'est le dernier de voir le message que j'ai de Bélissé.
Black Lives Matter. Forget the lower levels. We are looking to the top. Who is at the top? Anyone to come to buy a ticket. Apart from that, we are just there trying to help as much as we can and give advice to people. I hope you do the same. Follow the procedure, wash your hands, avoid contact with people, try to be safe yourself. I love you and be safe.
C'était occupé, il y avait plein de monde ici?
Oui, on a dormi à 4 ans.
Wow.
L'histoire de Béli, on ne peut plus l'arrêter. Quand la police avait fermé l'histoire, a dit qu'il n'y avait pas des évidences, tout ça, il y a eu des jeunes qui se sont révoltés à cette histoire. Parce que c'est une histoire vraie. Toutes ces manifestations, c'est très bon. Ils défendent la cause de ma femme. Que dire encore?
Comment va votre famille ici en Angleterre et aussi votre famille en RDC?
Très mal. Sa maman est là. Elle souffre. C'est Béli qui s'occupait de sa famille. Ma prière est que Dieu assiste cette famille. Surtout cette femme.
Comment voulez-vous qu'on se souvienne de votre femme?
Une très bonne personne. Qui est attentif aux demandes des autres, aux souffrances des autres. Prête à partager le peu qu'il a. C'est ça.
And staying in the UK, the Black Lives Matter protest has seen the term BAME become more conspicuous. It stands for Black, Asian and Minority Ethnic and is often used by politicians, officials and media. But does anyone who is supposed to be included in those groups actually refer to themselves as BAME? We've been finding out.
I try not to identify myself as BAME, instead British Indian, because that's what I am.
I refer to myself as Black or Black British.
Kurdish or British.
I'm a British Ghanaian.
From Romani Gypsy heritage.
I'm not a big fan of the term BME.
To me, it just seems to kind of cement this idea of white and other.
I find it's sometimes more problematic than it is beneficial.
It's used as a catch-all for people who aren't actually Black, Asian or from a minority ethnicity.
I think what it does is it disguises the discrimination and disparities between the different ethnic groups.
For example, with the recent events in America and even police brutality in the UK, these aren't experiences that affect every member of the BAME community. I think it's a bit more useful to start, calling certain experiences, for example, anti-Blackness as a specific type of racism.
It has to be broken up because when the question is Black, the answer cannot be BAME.
It's too easy for corporations and for educational facilities to be able to just use the title BAME. It allows them to not have to invest too much in those different minorities.
Example of that would be even in my tech experience, the number of all Asian founding teams that receive money is extremely higher than the number of all Black founding teams.
So when leaders or politicians are asked about are there Black people within the cabinet or within their teams, they can't reply and say, yes, there are BAME people, there are Asian people, because the experiences and lives of Black and Asian people are very different.
Call people what they want to be called. I would expect to be referred to as a Kurdish person because that's how I identify.
If you want to be identified as Black, then Black is what it is.
I identify as Black, I'm a British Ghanaian, and I don't understand why I can't be described as Black. We should be described and labelled how each individual sees it.
Interesting conversation, isn't it? Well, that's it from the programme. From me, Peter Okotie, and the rest of the team. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.